It's okay, I'm just using it now. Let's see how it goes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa barik wa sallam alayhi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Apologies for the delay. We're just getting internet issues here now. So I think we're going to hotspot throughout the day. The winds, my internet doesn't seem to be working, I think. Is it there? It's there. Even this is unstable, but we'll see. Okay, so last week we were going through the types of najasa and we start looking at the najasa hakikiya, and we were looking at, let's quickly go through. Okay, we mentioned the light najasa, which is physical filth. There are two types, and we're looking at the minor light filth, in which we said these are those which the text is not heavily kind of criticized them, not criticized, but mentioned them heavily. The dalil is not definitive, the evidence is not definitive, and if anything, there's disagreements among scholars upon it. So because of the disagreement, the classification of it becomes light. And like I mentioned in the other schools, like the Shafis, they don't have this split between the light and minor or major filth. For them, filth is filth. Whether, they don't have that. But we have this in the Hanafis because why? Because we try to have layers of classification as much as we can to try to be clear as much as we can, really. What is the classification, really? What is the dalil behind it? So when I say something is wajib, when I say something is fard, straight away it becomes very apparent that the dalil is not definitive and there's a dhanni dalil behind it. Same with this kind of stuff, with the minor and the major field, is indicative of the fact that there is a dhanni dalil behind minor filth. If it was qat'i dalil, then what would it mean? It would just be a major filth, really. And we said, okay, the droppings and the urine, or you can just say excretions of all halal animals is considered to be minor filth. And the dropping feces of flying birds, we said, which are not lawful to eat, so like we call them haram birds, okay, which are not permissible to eat, we say their droppings are what considered to be minor filth. You would have thought all filth is what? Just filth major, right? But we have this kind of, so these three have been separated out, and we talked about last week about the urine of animals whose meat is lawful, and we mentioned we've gone through that, and we looked at the disagreement because of the main disagreement is because of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ gave a tribe the camel urine as a treatment. He said, just drink that. Okay, it's a hadith in Bukhari, so the scholars looked at it and they said, okay, Imam Muhammad said it must be pure. Another said not pure, but the Prophet knew the shifa is in that. Okay, so because of that hadith, now disagreements have kicked in, and therefore its grading has become from major to minor. So we've gone through details on that. We looked at the fiqh as well, the modern fatwas on what is the ruling on using haram ingredients for medication for purposes, and we went through those rulings as well last week. So the next one is and we looked at the Hanafi's opinion, like, when the Prophet is cursing or warning about the torments of the grave from urine and all that, not taking care of it, he doesn't make a distinction, really. Okay, so that's why, uh, like, within the Hanafi school, we have disagreements. We have disagreements within the Hanafi school, and because of those disagreements, it's been lowered to a minor filth. Now, the second one is the dropping feces of flying birds that are not lawful to eat, such as falcon, hawk, and eagle, due to the issues of necessity, really. Nothing else. Okay, so this is a rational reason here now. So Imam Muhammad considers their feces to be major filth, as he argues that there is no issue of necessity due to the absence of these birds in human habitations. So, birds like eagles, falcons, and all that, You're not going to find them here. You're going to find them in what, mountainous region, those kind of places. Uh, so Imam Muhammad goes, no excuse. I don't think we should lower it. What does Imam Muhammad say in the other case about camel urine? He says, he goes, it's pure. Because there's a hadith there, right? So he's like, now he's on the other spectrum here now. So where he's come in and he's made urine of halal animals pure, he's coming here and he's doing the opposite here. Where Imam Abu Yusuf is saying, no, no, there's necessity, because what's the necessity? Imam Abu Yusuf, the necessity is what? He argues that they send their droppings from the air. And it is difficult to take preventive measures against this. Hence, the necessity is established. So imagine you were walking and they just throw the droppings from the air. What can you do about it? Not much about it, yeah? And if it drops on you, it's something that can be avoided. And therefore, darura is established here. So necessity means that, you know, it's something that you can't do anything about it. And when things are difficult, hardship comes in. And when hardship comes in and all that, then the rulings drop from the default. So when they say the necessity is established, meaning it's something you can't avoid. And by necessity, you have to give dispensation here now. So that's Imam Abu Yusuf's case. And Imam Muhammad says, well, you don't find these birds in usual inhabitations and all that. So there is no necessity here. Again, they are debating with each other within the Hanafi school. So the dropping feces of flying birds that are lawful to eat is excused, such as now the. But what about the lawful birds? So this is the unlawful birds. We can't eat them anyway. But it's because of this disagreement, it's minor filth. However, the dropping feces of flying birds that are lawful to eat is excused, such as pigeons, sparrows, and so pigeons and sparrows, these birds, their droppings are not considered to be filth. They're considered to be pure. So you're gonna have to get your head around this a bit, okay? So non-halal animal birds, which are difficult to avoid and all that, because they throw their drop. Any flying bird, basically, any flying bird, can you avoid it? You can't, okay? Necessity is established. Straight away from major to, it's become minor filth. Now from flying birds, you have pigeons and sparrows. These animals we eat, these birds we eat. These particular ones, they are halal. Their droppings are pure, not even filth. Okay, why is that? Because the Hanafi scholars said that the excrement of edible birds such as pigeons and sparrows is pure, for it is without any disagreement, it's agreed upon that pigeons are to move freely in the mosques, especially in the Haram, Masjid al-Nabawi and Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, despite there being commands to keep the mosques clean. There are clear instructions from the prophetic narrations that keep the mosques clean and tidy, etc., but not a single instruction to keep the pigeons out. Not a single instruction to, you know, shoot them off, basically. So they were always being allowed to be in and out, and they were throwing the droppings in the masjid and all that. Never ever a narration to say this is problem. Okay, so because of the practice and what we've seen from generation from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he's saying keep the mosque clean and tidy, but he's never said anything about the pigeons to keep them out because they're throwing droppings which are filth. Never ever mention of the droppings of them either. Okay, so they've been treated as pure. And now what do you think is coming in here? Now tell me this. Imam Muhammad, Imam Abu Yusuf, where does he think he gets this reasoning from? About it's a darura that you can't avoid their droppings. There's a bit of ishara here in the pigeons thing, that the pigeons they're just too common. They're gonna come in and out. You can't do anything about it. So there's a bit of ishara for him to take his opinion that, you know, for the birds like eagles and falcons and all that, again, any bird which is just flying is going to be difficult to avoid its filth. Okay, but because of these pigeons and sparrows in particular, they were so common and nothing has been said about them in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Therefore, the Hanafis, they consider them to be pure, not even minor filth. They also say uh, the chemical nature of their droppings is quite different, of pigeons and sparrows in particular. So there is a bit difference as well. Uh, had their excrement been impure, the Muslim would have not have left them in the sacred mosque to begin with. There would have been like narrations and Sahaba saying, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. You would have seen practices from the Khalifas to come as well, that protecting the masajid, like fencing them somehow, and you would have seen that practice today as well then. Okay, but till today we see it's open, they allow them, whatever. They don't really. And their dropping does not become smelly and putrid but they're more like sludge. So again, the fuqaha looked at the droppings and they said they are quite different in nature as well. So Aisha radiallahu anha narrated, the Prophet ﷺ ordered the construction of the masajid and al-dur, and he ordered them to be kept clean and scented. Okay, so that's the minor, and that's the reasons why they've gone from major to minor, because of some either issue of necessity or an either of a dispute upon the dalil. Okay, now major heavy filth is, now why do you think the droppings of okay, we'll come to that. So anything which is established by definitive evidence, that's major filth, without a doubt. Okay, what's definitive evidence? قطعي dalil, the evidence which is definitive in its transmission. Okay, we absolutely show that this narration has come from the Prophet ﷺ without a doubt. There's not even a small percentage doubt about it. And also the meaning is very clear. It doesn't mean, and it only means one thing. That gives definitiveness to the evidence. So, what are those things? Alcohol is one of them. Okay, flowing blood. Okay, alcohol, which one? From grapes or dates? Okay, all of the alcohol nowadays, we're going to look at that. So, uh, flowing blood is major filth, without a doubt. And this is from all animals, including humans, if it flows. And there are cases in which blood will not be considered impure. Okay, so what are they? So that blood that remains in the meat of a slaughtered animal. So to begin with, we've not looked at this, but we normally look at this in wudu. So remember I mentioned I'm trying to do an order where we don't have to cross over too much and go ahead and explaining other things. But this one we're going to have to do. So blood which is considered to be filth is only the blood that is flowing. It's only flowing blood. And what is flowing blood? That is from the arteries or from the veins, etc. That's kind of gushing out. Blood that is not flowing, let's say under your skin, you've kind of uh, you just had a cut and it's not flowing, but you get redness. We say that is stagnant blood. That blood is going to become muscle eventually and all that. Uh, so that is not flowing blood. If it's not flowing blood, we say that is not filthy. That is not filthy. Okay, it's not filth. It's only flowing blood, which is filth. So imagine you had like a clot coming out, which was stuck in your nose. Because it's not flowing, we say it's not filth. So these examples here, like blood that remains in the meat of a slaughtered animal, why? Because it's not flowing. It's just there, present. Blood that remains in the blood vessels of a slaughtered animal. Blood that remains in the blood vessels of a slaughtered animal, again, it's not flowing. Blood in the liver, spleen, and the heart. Blood that doesn't break wudu, i.e. surfaces but does not flow. So you get a scratch. You just get a scratch on your hand. You dab it with the tissue paper, but on its own it's not flowing, it's just redness. But if you dab it with the tissue paper, for sure, you're going to get some blood on the tissue paper. That is not filth. that doesn't break your wudu either. But we're gonna look at this in detail when we come to wudu. But it has to be flowing blood, which is considered to be filth, and it has to be flowing blood, which is considered to be that invalidates your wudu as well. Mm-hmm.
Your artery or vein, but you still bleed as in it flows, trickles from your arm.
If it trickles, that is flowing blood. Yeah. So remember, and I've mentioned arteries and veins. There are even many more tiny, what do you call them? Capillaries or something? What's the name of that? Some doctor, one of the class highlighted it. So see, I'm not a doctor, so there are even finer kind of carriers of blood, like in your hand. And for example, so when we normally hear arteries, veins, but throughout the body there are other vessels that very very fine. They're carrying blood as well. Okay, so any point when blood trickles, know that is flowing blood. Yeah, go on.
Stop it from trickling or flowing.
If you stop it, yeah,
Stop it flowing.
yeah,
Or like dishing your hands. Let's say your hand's like that, the
yeah.
blood will pool, but if you do your hand like that, then it might run down your hand. Does that make
It has to flow on its own, not by your movement. So yeah, if you're saying if you keep it like this and it's nothing's gonna happen, and then if you go like this and then you might force it, but what we're saying is by its own force, by its own self, it has to trickle. Okay, you might do things like to prevent it from trickling. The point is you need to know is that will it trickle or not? You might do things to prevent it, like you're mentioning. You might just stop dabbing it, like stop it straight away. And you might be now, technically, blood hasn't flown yet. It hasn't flown. But if it comes in contact with the tissue paper, then what does that mean? It's absorbing it, but has it left the body? It has. Yeah. So the question is, does it leave your body, or the point of the opening, or the point of where it's popped out from? Yes. So you could be doing all you can do to stop it from apparently coming out, but the moment it leaves the skin or the opening, wherever it's coming from, then it is considered to have trickled now. Yeah.
All that's gonna bleed.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know that this is flowing blood, it's something that's going to really start trickling through and all that, then it is considered flowing blood. Yeah, you could do anything to stop it and all that, but it's left the body anyway. So blood or any fluid or bugs, mosquitoes or roaches. So we say these mosquitoes and all that. Number one, they don't really have any blood, and if they do have any blood, then the fiqh just kind of says negligible. It's just minor. They say as kids nowadays say it's minor. I don't know these kids. It's always minor. Yeah, there we go. Capillaries. There we go. Those are the finer vessels. Yeah. Okay. Is there a set amount? Say from a spot there's only a small amount. Would that count too? So yeah, good question. Again, we normally discuss that, but they say if it's just very minute amount and on its own, it won't trickle. Like you just get something, you get caught, and then it doesn't trickle, but it bubbles by so little. So they say in that case they say no, it has to trickle, uh, and that's how you know it's flowing. Okay, the sign of flowing blood is that it leaves one place to the other. It leaves the place from where it exits, even like a millimeter, whatever. It has to traverse. Okay, or more technically, is knowing that has it come from an artery or from a vein of a capillary like that. That's more technical. What's the visible sign of it? It leaves its location. it leaves its location. So it has to be that amount of blood that it leaves its location. That's the visible sign. More technical is, has it come from a capillary, has it come from an artery or a vein or something like that, which is carrying blood throughout the body. So that you go with the visible signs really. That has it left its place of exit, then yes. If it's many places, and let's say each place you got different cuts on the hand, then you will say if the amount of that equals to something that would flow, then that would consider to be invalidation of wudu as well then. If it's in many places, you probably got like glass, broken glass splashing on you or something, and you just got cuts in different places. On their own, they probably won't qualify. But if there were many of them, and then they all cause a bit of amount of blood, but it didn't flow on its own, but there is enough blood everywhere that if you put that together, it flows, then they would say, okay, that also, because it's in many places, and it was just enough cut to make it bubble up, but not for it to flow. But they say if now that amount collective would flow, if it was in one place, then they would say that would also invalidate wudu, and that would also then consider to be filthy blood. So any wudu that any bleeding that invalidates wudu is considered to be filthy blood as well. Okay, what if flowing blood is covered by something like a bandage? We talked about this, so that's your question, Raja. Yeah, so you can cover it and all that. The moment it leaves, is considered to be have left the place. Now, there are different scenarios. If one has to put a bandage on, then we have to look at now this person, is he excused or not for the bleeding? Okay, so that's a different scenario. So if someone now is constantly bleeding and they have to put a bandage, but we know underneath they are bleeding still. Okay, that is going to come under a different discussion we're going to do. It's called an excused person. Okay, excused person is someone who's excused for many things, like urine incontinence, for example, is one of those things. Constant bleeding is another one. But we're going to discuss that separately. We'll do that later, inshallah. It's coming anyway. Another question: if you had blood test, for example, where blood has been extracted from the vein, would that count as major filth? Yes. Yeah, because why? Tell me why. Yeah, it's because it's flowing blood. Yeah, it's coming from the vein. Yeah. So yeah, the blood is flowing from the vein. Yeah. So let's say after you get an injection, right? They have to wait for a while. They have to dab it and all that to stop the blood. So that is again, yeah, that would be considered to be filthy blood. Right, let's move on because I don't want to spend too much time on this. We are going to discuss this anyway when we come to wudu. Okay, I tend to get a nosebleed while I'm in sujood. Should I consider it to be major filth? Now, nosebleed will be considered to be flowing blood. It will be considered to be flowing blood. Uh, if it's just a clot, then it's gathered blood gathered over time, and maybe you sneezed or something and then it just came out. But let's say how would you know that you sneezed and a blood clot came out, but there's nothing after that, and it's jelly-like, it's thick, viscous kind of thing, but after that there's no bleeding. So you know that is just blood just gathered. It's not flowing blood, and it just came out as a result of some force. But if it's just not you cleaning it once, wiping it once, and then again comes out and it's dripping down, then you know this is flowing blood, and that would be considered to be major filth. That would invalidate the wudu as well, let alone being major filth. Again, depending on the nature of the bleeding and all that, when we discuss excused person, we call a ma'zur person, we're going to look at, okay, would this be excused or not in that? But when we get to that section, we'll look at it. So. Okay, so major filth is what? Flowing blood, alcohol from grapes or dates, from flowing blood from all these different examples we gave. all parts of dead animal with flowing blood that is not slaughtered, including its meat and its hide. So all parts of a dead animal with flowing blood that is not slaughtered, okay, including its meat and hide. So this includes animals whose meat is lawful to eat as well. So any animal, whether it's lawful or unlawful, if it's slaughtered, its meat is not filth. Now, put a sheep, put a dog or a lion next to it. If it's slaughtered, then the resultant meat is what? No, that's not so permissible. That the resultant meat is pure, Okay. Now, it's a second question. Which meat is permissible to eat? Only the meat of the sheep that we consider permissible to consume is going to be edible. Okay, you can eat it. Whereas the meat of the lion or the dog, though it is pure in its nature because it's been slaughtered, it is not permissible to consume. That's the difference.
Even if they pure blood leaving its body, does that make it perfect? Is that the concept of what happens to
The
Pure meaning opposite filthiness.
Yes, pure meaning opposite of filthy, yes. Yeah. So we're talking about in terms of touching it or it. Now, filth. So, okay. All right. Someone tell me, why are we discussing filth? What's the need to discuss filth?
Whether you need to, whether you makes you unclean.
So what's the big deal? It makes me unclean.
Because
Yeah, go on online.
those,
Yes, Faisal, sorry.
I was going to say, once we know what type of filth it is, we know what's going to clean it and what level of purification is required.
Yes, so and everything is related. Anyone else wants to add on to it?
One of the preconditions of prayer is purity. So if someone's handling meat, for instance,
Yep.
they know what blood is pure and what's impure.
So good example. So you're all right, all giving some different from different angles, but the whole reason we're discussing these things is because we have to achieve purification to certain acts of worship. Prayer is the main one. Okay, prayer, wudu, then we have to make wudu. Okay, so to make wudu, we have to understand what do I need to remove myself from. Okay, filth. What filth do I need to be clean of from? So I need to make a ghusl as well. Ghusl is another condition to be in a state of major ritual purification. Okay, what makes me enter into a state of ghusl, for example, that I need? So it's all the issues of purification that are related to issues of worship. So we need to understand this. So the Qasim's, we're missing him today, by the way. So Qasim's not here. We got so used to Qasim now for 3 weeks that now today we're missing him. Inshallah, we'll see him soon. So like Qasim said, you're dealing with meat, you're handling meat, you're delivering it, you're maybe a delivery driver and all that, or you butchering it and all that, and then you need to understand. You need to even understand if it's you slaughtering let's say you're not slaughtering, you're dealing with a halal animal, because if it's not slaughtered in the Shari way, the meat is what? It's not pure. You touch it, you got what on your hand? Filth. You have filth on your hand.
That, as an example, say if you find like a dead sheep.
Yep.
And
It's not slaughtered.
It's not slaughtered. And
Yeah.
you touch it, that's not pure then.
Well, if you just touch it, let's say you find,
that sheep is not pure because it's not been slaughtered.
yeah, so the meat of that sheep is not pure. Yeah. If you touch the skin and all that, that's fine, because if you touch okay, The example of now you're given, you found, you're driving and you find a sheep on the road dead. Okay, automatically you think it's a halal animal. I'm just going to touch on all that, right? Now remember, if it's not slaughtered, the meat of it, okay, any part where there is flowing blood, let's look at this again now. So all parts of a dead animal with flowing blood. All parts of a dead animal with flowing blood that is not slaughtered, including its meat and its hide. So tell me which parts don't have flowing blood of an animal. Just give me one or two. The hoofs, yeah. You go on now, touch that sheep on the hoofs. Is that pure? It's pure because it has no flowing blood. Second thing is the bones. There's no blood flowing. But can you get to the bones? You can't at this stage. But the hoofs is a good example. You hold it from the hoofs, even if the hoofs are wet and your hands become wet, you haven't got filth on your hands. However, they said skin, the hide, is what? All parts with flowing blood, including the hide. Yeah, so now you go and pick that sheep up and it's drenching wet. What did you touch? The skin. What's the nature of what's the state of the skin now? Is filth. Okay, but now the question is the outer layer considered to be skin, the hide of a sheep? Yeah, that is all. That's all the skin. Now, if it's drenching wet and you picked up that sheep to move it somewhere, and your hands become wet and all that, you basically got filth on your body now. Yeah, because hide is considered to be, it's considered to be filthy, okay, if it's not slaughtered. Okay, so the skin of the animal, if it's not slaughtered, it is considered to be filthy. So that's why it says any part in which blood is running, including and its hide as well. Okay, so all that is filth. No. So now the question is, if you picked it up and it was completely dry, and when you moved away, you had nothing, no wetness on your hand, have you got filth on yourself? No. But if you got the wool and the fur and all that, that is filthy. You'll have to remove that. Okay. So what makes the hide pure? Slaughtering or the process of tanning? Those are the only two things that make the hide. Tanning is a method where you put it out in the sun, let it dry. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at that separately. Okay. In the Shari way.
That was haram, but according to the Shari way, the meat would be technically pure for you to touch, but then haram for you to
Consume, correct. Yeah. So you can now make the hide of a lion pure by slaughtering it in the Shari way. So it goes back to Raja's question. So is it the way the blood leaves the body? Seems like. So when you slaughter it, then basically you are letting the impurities flow out in a manner that is in accordance with Sharia. Your intention is not that to consume the meat, but your intention there is to make at least the hide permissible, the meat permissible to touch on all that. Yeah. Okay, the urine, dung, feces, and saliva of animals whose meat. Already time's gone. This is too little time for fiqh. Khair. The urine, dung, feces, and saliva of animals whose meat is unlawful, such as human, fox, or wolf. So the urine, dung, feces, and saliva of animals whose meat is unlawful. Okay, so the unlawful animals are all let's say the predatory animals, to keep it simple. Okay. So is human in that. I put human in that, but I shouldn't put that. So I tried to be comprehensive in my words. Every year I teach this and I say I'm going to take it out. I'm going to edit it. I just don't do it. So, but the human part is the urine and the dung and feces part. Okay, so I should have separated the saliva out into a new line, but I thought I'll be clever and smart about it, but I couldn't be. And I'm just too lazy now to bring onto a new line. So, so it is the dung, the urine, the excretions of all animals whose meat is unlawful, such as fox or wolf. I'm going to leave human out. But the dropping, the excretions from humans are what? Also major filth. Okay, the urine, etc., the stool. So why not halal animals? We already discussed halal animals. What is that? That's minor filth. We've already discussed that. So you can say that urine, dung, feces of predatory animals. Another way. This includes dogs as well. Feces of non. So the saliva of these animals is also major filth, right? Not the saliva of human being though. Okay, that's the exception. Feces of non-flying birds, such as droppings of chicken, duck, or swan. What are they? Major filth. We're talking about major filth here now, all of these. What was minor filth? Droppings of which birds? Which flying birds? Not halal. The predatory, yeah. Their droppings is minor filth. But the things like chickens, yeah, swans, ducks, and all that, that's major. You can eat them as well, by the way, these birds.
Void.
Yeah, the whole thing is that the only reason they were flying birds were excused because you can't avoid them. Chickens and all that, they're not really flying birds as per se. They can fly a bit, but they stay on the ground, so you can avoid them. So therefore, there is no necessity established there. And the excuse of minor filth doesn't exist because it was for an animal. It was a camel. It was the urine of camel. So they again restrict that to not birds, just animals like of that type. Okay, for like the animals kind of thing, but they don't extend that to birds. So they don't extend that. Okay, so because of that dispute that the Prophet allowed urine to be drank of camel, well, okay, because of that the urine and dung of sheep horses became minor filth. They don't apply that to halal birds. You see, they don't apply to birds, they only apply to those animals, those kind of animals, but not to the birds. So therefore, the status quo is the same. Default is major filth. Okay, unless they find an excuse. There is no excuse for this. So therefore, they say chickens and all that, their dung and their droppings and all that is major filth.
Chicken species is major filth. You get that on.
Yeah.
Falcons and other predatory birds is minor.
Which are flying is minor.
Pigeons are pure.
Pigeons are pure.
Their dung pure.
Their dung droppings, all that is pure.
Special exception.
Special exception based on practice, really, what this. Yeah. So you got 3 levels here in birds. Yeah. Default is droppings, excretions of birds is major filth. Exception is predatory flying birds because of necessity. And then another exception is pigeons and sparrows. It's not even filth to begin with. And the rest is just major filth. That's how you need to understand this.
When you say flying birds, I was getting a bit mixed up. So you mean birds that can fly, not they're flying at the time. So if an eagle is flying and it poops on you,
yeah,
then that's minor.
Yeah.
If that bird sat on a tree and it poops on you, it's not flying. You don't mean that, do you?
Well, it's still at a height, right? You still can't avoid it.
Any birds that can fly.
Right.
Any birds that can fly.
It's not flying at the time, just that can fly.
Yeah, you're going too technical here.
Yeah, I think, I
Well,
think the
I think
flying
birds
boat
which
is-
fly is different to flying.
A flying bird, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, so a bird that can, okay, let's say an eagle is on the ground and it leaves its poop wherever you say, right?
Yeah.
And if you step on it, what is it?
Mine, yeah. No, I don't.
It is avoidable, but in this category.
But they don't,
minor filth.
see, you see, the ulama are not discussing that here, by the way. You see, they're not discussing that here. But if you find it on the ground, any filth, it becomes major. Simple as that. What we're talking about is you can avoid it, right? The issue is avoidance. So, but if what they're talking about is you're just walking in. Yeah. So yeah, but if you find, other than that, if you find any filth on the ground, anywhere, and you sit on it, and it smells like, okay, oh dear, what are you gonna say? Major filth. You're not gonna start thinking, was this from, was this, which one? Right, okay. Okay, and dog isn't included, right, in the predatory birds, sorry, predatory animals. So any physical part of the pig, without exception, is called najsul ayn, filth by essence, basically. So every single part. So pig is a special category on its own because it's been called out as a najis in the Quran. So therefore, it's pig. Every single part of the pig, every single part of it. Whether it's the hair, whether it's if they don't hooves, right? But if they had, that would also be considered to be najis. Like for a simple example, bones of animals are pure because there's no flowing blood in them. Doesn't matter which animal it is, any animal except the pig. Every single part of the pig is considered to be filthy. No exceptions. Inside out is filthy. Okay, so not a single part of a pig is considered to be pure in any circumstance. You can do anything, it will never be considered to be pure unless you transform it from one substance to another through some chemical process and all that. Otherwise, never. So a pig is always an exception. Always.
Using it medically, didn't they, when they're using arteries and pigs and humans?
Yeah.
Obviously, but
It's just there's just no permissibility to use it. The only time you can eat a pig is when what? You're about to die, and that's it. The issue of darura, really. And whatever discharge from person's body which nullifies wudu, such as flowing blood, sperm, madi, menstrual period, postnatal bleeding, and vomit, that is mouthful, and so on. So all those things which also nullify wudu, one of them is flowing blood. We talked about that. Sperm, okay. Any other excretions which we're going to look at, we're going to talk into them. So you got the pre-seminal discharge and all that, or menstrual period blood, postnatal bleeding. Vomit is also a thing that breaks wudu, but only if it's a mouthful. We're going to look at that, but so only vomit which breaks wudu is filthy. So a small amount of vomit, does it break wudu? It doesn't. So is it considered filthy? No. So only a mouthful. So these are the major filths. Now,
so you mentioned before that saliva from the human, that's not filth.
that's not filth at all. The saliva, the rule of the saliva is it's connected to the meat of the animal. That's how you determine it. Now let's look at these. Some of them we don't need to look at. We need to look at some of them. Some of them are just self-explanatory. But these are all examples that are considered to be major filth. Alcohol now, let's look at this. Oh, we're over time now. So but what we'll do now is next week we're going to go through looking at which alcohol is prohibited. We've got all these issues of like nowadays aftershaves and all that we use, and there's synthetic alcohol in that is permissible and all that. That's not considered to be filth even. So we're going to look at all that. We're going to look at alcohol. What else is there? urine of an infant. That's some things about that. And then we're going to go into just excuse amount and all that. Any questions before we take a break? And then Sheikh Abdul Aziz will join us, inshallah, at 12:15.
The exception with the camel, the Prophet,
Mm-hmm.
saying that, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
does that apply to all four-legged land-dwelling animals?
Seems like that's where they've. So in fiqh, they would extend the rulings. So they look at something. Okay, the Prophet recommended this tribe to drink camel urine. So now they can extend this to any. Well, crazy analogy would be what? Just extend it to everything that urinates. That'll be just too far-fetched, right? So the fuqaha will look at it. Okay, seems like, okay, number one, we'd have to look commonalities here. So it's a four-legged animal, it's a halal animal, it's not a bird. Okay, so then they will confine it. Okay, and that's how analogy works. Okay, I'll give an example. For example, laughing in prayer breaks wudu, and depending on how the kind of the laughter is, it breaks your salafat to begin regardless, but then it could also invalidate your wudu as well, depending on how loud it is. Now, that only is applied to a normal salah. It doesn't apply to janazah prayer. Why? Because the context in this happened is a blind man was crossing, the Sahaba saw him falling into a ditch. They all laughed. And this is the Prophet ﷺ, he's leading them in prayer. They all laughed. When the prayer finished, the Prophet ﷺ said that those who laughed, repeat your prayer. Okay? So because this happened in a normal prayer, they only restrict it to a normal prayer. They could far-fetch it to every prayer. They don't do that. They only restrict it to a prayer that looks like that. Now, a janazah prayer has no ruku, no sujood. So they say it doesn't look like it. So this ruling only applies if you laugh out in a normal prayer, like that looks which has that shape, that form. So if you laugh out loud in a janazah prayer, why would you do that? You got other problems, yeah? But it's just the analogy doesn't extend too much.
Did they have to do wudu again as well? In that example?
In that example, they didn't, I think. I'll have to check on that. I'll have to check on that. But okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Let's take a break. Sheikh Abdul Aziz is here as well. So what time are we on? Yeah, you only got 10 minutes really. You have to come back. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.